Call to order the City Council meeting, Lake Mills City Council meeting for September 17th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Mrs.
Mrs.
Fritsch.
Fritsch.
That was Mr. Fritsch. Okay, I'm here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Fritsch?
Here.
Ms. Schmidt?
Okay, in transit, right? Okay, so we'll let you get yourself settled. And we would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone would stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 4, corrections and/or approval of the City Council minutes of August 20th, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Is
Second.
Okay. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay. Takes us to item 5, correspondence. Council members who wish to respond to that item on the agenda?
I think we all got this, right?
Yeah, we all got a letter,
Okay.
but you want to just mention it that we got it?
I got a letter with quite a few numbers of signatures on it, people that live in the South Ferry Drive area. I guess they're almost all from South Ferry Drive, regarding not wanting us to extend South Ferry Drive to Sandy Beach.
Okay. Anybody have?
Yeah, I had a conversation with a gentleman from the city last week, actually, and he wanted me to make sure that everybody here on the council knew and the staff knew that the folks that are doing the mill and overlay work, he wanted to commend their work. He said they went above and beyond over by Lilac. Said that, you know, they actually came up into his driveway and cleaned it, and they cleaned everybody else's driveway fully. So they went a little bit above and beyond what they were supposed to, so they really appreciated it down there and said they did a great job.
Okay. Anybody over here?
No, I had the same letter Vicki was talking about, and I also received an email, and I passed it on to Steve, about trucks using Brookstone now that American Way goes through. Some of the larger trucks and semis traveling through there, so he was going to contact PD and have them keep an eye on it.
Right. And just on piggybacking on that, if things go well, we're going to have some blacktop on the north part of Mulberry, maybe even this week, but next week for sure. And that is going to be a single coat. It is not ready for truck traffic. And so the signs will still be up for not coming through, and so truck drivers and companies, please do not send your trucks down to Mulberry Street. It'll break our pipes, which we just put in, and we don't want that to happen. So I want to just mention that we were invited, all the council staff were invited to the Rock Lake Activity Center's picnic today. And I did go, and I received lunch, as did many, many people. It was well attended. And I also got a tour of the work that they've done and how it turned out and so forth. And just to report to the council that it looks wonderful, and they have a lot of people signed up for activities. So I think our goal has been successful, and let's hope it continues in that direction. So, anybody else have correspondence?
Oh, I just got the letter that everybody else got.
Yeah, and I did too.
Yeah, and I had just one last note. I also received the emails that Steve received, and one thing to note is that once American Way does go through, that is going to be a planned truck route. So as it stands right now, trucks shouldn't be using it, but in
Eventually.
the future it will be. So, and that's why that road is built as wide as it is.
And that'll be nice to have for truck traffic.
And we also, probably all of us received a letter from Chief Mick Selk inviting us to the Police and Fire Commission meeting on Thursday at 5 o'clock, where 2 officers are going to be promoted to lieutenant. That's Sergeant Alan Whitty and Sergeant Brandon Cedarwall, and they're hoping that former police chiefs are all going to be in attendance.
Which will be nice. But, hope that we have good attendance at that, if I don't forget on Thursday. It's not a normal council day. So, okay. I don't have any other correspondence other than people who are happy when their roads are getting finished and their sidewalks are getting in and their driveways are opening up, and it's kind of like spring, oh, today we got this. So it's exciting. I hope it continues and we get done fast. So the rest we'll let Steve handle in his report. All right, moving on to item 6, questions and public comment. A second here, I got it. Okay. The public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, you are asked to hold it. Nope, darn, I can't read yes and no here. Let me try this again. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments, and fill out the sign-in sheet provided on the podium. If you're on the agenda, we'll probably take that during the council meetings. So, do I have anybody who wishes to address the council coming up to the podium at this time? So, okay, looks like we're all set to go on. All right. Closing public comment, going on to city manager's report. I'll turn it over to Steve and let you take that. Thank you.
I provided you with the treasurer's report for July 2019, the general fund check register and the utility check register, the DNR's approval of our plan to handle the radium at well number 4. So that's been approved, and actually the company should be in this month, and that should be done within a week or 2. So whenever they get in, it's not a big project. They're just going to fill a little bit of the bottom in. You saw the city band request for the budget, and then the letter you guys got, and the Club 55 picnic. We are continuing on South Main Street, and South Main Street, they did a lot of work this last week. They plan on having the southbound lane poured this week, and they actually plan on having it all done mid-October. Most of the main work for getting through Main Street probably be done by the first week in October, and then it's clean up and street lights. And one of the things that you'll have to note, though, is that they actually don't get to turn any of their construction over to the city or the state until next year. So there are certain things that they are not going to allow us to do, like put planters on the sidewalks or Christmas decorations on the streetlights. So those are some of the things you may notice are going to be different this year. Generally, though, it's going pretty good. People tend to want to drive through it. now already, even though it's not open. So there are a lot of people who had to be pulled out this weekend.
Pulled out of the sand?
So those are continuing issues.
Okay,
Mulberry Street, they are looking at paving it this Thursday.
but only the north part, right?
Yeah, from Fargo to
north.
Grant. They still continue to work on some of the stormwater and sidewalks and curb and gutter to the south, some of the base. But it's coming together pretty fast. It's really starting to move now. Street maintenance contracts, you'll note that Lilac was done, Woodland Beach Court was done, Phillips was done, Giles was done. And when we say that, there's still some minor things we have to follow up on. Some of them need some patching work, some of them need curb repair or something like that. But the most of the work is done on Harvey and Lakeview. Brooks is still needs a layer of asphalt. Mildred still needs a layer of asphalt. And Cherokee Path. Sandy Beach, the archaeological survey that we ordered is underway. So if you want to go down and watch them dig, it's interesting.
Are they there every day? Working?
Yes, they will be there pretty much every day until they're done. Should be about between 5 and 10 days.
Any gold discovered?
If they discovered it, they didn't tell me. But we'll be like
They all
the-
went out and partied after the one dig one day.
We'll
I
be
was
like
kidding.
the Scottish Church of Christ and put in for our share.
Now, is most of the digging right along the shore there of the lake where they found the other stuff?
Yes, actually, they're doing the whole park this time.
Oh.
They did the whole park the last time, but most of what they found was on the west end. But they are doing the whole park again in a much more detailed fashion. The library, you'll note that we started tearing up the back of the library.
I saw that.
So that parking lot will be being prepared, should be done in a couple weeks.
Now, is there fill getting put in the lot,
There's
or what's
actually
the plan?
12 inches of base will be installed under the asphalt.
Okay,
so,
so I guess what I'm asking is, you have the parking lot behind the library, and then you've got the land where the old police department was, is that all going to be one level eventually, or go from one to the other?
No,
even?
it'll be level pretty much,
Okay.
but because we have to put in so much gravel base under the asphalt, it actually levels it up. So on the far north end, we'll dig a little out. Most of the digging will be for the stormwater detention basin on the east side of it.
Oh.
And then removal of the black dirt. And they'll grade it out to a finished grade for installing the base material, and then they'll put the asphalt on and the sidewalk. So it'll be level. It'll actually, that's why we took those 2 trees on the north end down, and because the sidewalk has to come down and that driveway will be closer to, because that one driveway was so steep.
Yes, it would chew, yeah.
So that's all kind
And
of
the
leveled off.
sidewalk is really high there, too.
Yeah, so we got to drop the sidewalk down, so we're going to start, we've already worked with, and we're also doing the driveway coming in. We've worked with the bank to be able to get the driveway all the way through. So it'll all be new pavement, and there'll be a new apron on Madison Street for it, so.
Will the driveway going up from Madison Street be a one-way in then and out the other way when we're done?
That's what we're leaning towards, is a one-way
That's what I
in
would hope.
off of Madison. I think we'll leave it 2-way coming off of Oak, so you can come in and then pull into a parking space, then back out and go back out on Oak. But if you're coming
Yeah.
from Madison, you have to exit onto Oak.
I think that's a really good idea, because it's not very wide, so,
And it's going to get narrower, because, yes, it's going to get narrower, because a lot of that asphalt went with the house to the
yeah. We didn't own all that, or we don't own any of that driveway, do we?
We don't own any of it. In fact,
That's
that
right.
whole driveway is on
Easement.
an easement.
Okay, so, well, we appreciate the bank letting us use it. Otherwise, we'd have a parking only in the back, which it's nice that we have parking that you can get into from the front.
We've submitted our final report for the lead service laterals. So we believe that we're done. We haven't heard back from the DNR yet if they have any modifications they want to see, but we're pretty much done going house to house. Not all the people have submitted for their lead lateral grants yet. And they need to remember there's a timeline.
Yeah,
So if you don't get it in, the money, you don't get the money. So,
right. And what about houses, let's say they just don't want to fix it? Will there be, let's say I'm coming to Lake Mills, I want to buy a house. Will there be some way I can see what houses in Lake Mills have not been changed over?
yeah.
Will that be just something on the internet, or will that be something we have to come to the city to get?
You would probably want to come to the city. If you were interested, your realtor should be calling the city and checking. Because that's not something we have out as public information, but we will give it out.
Yeah, there is documentation about what houses have not been changed over.
Right.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay.
A combination of things. We have not changed our electric rate. In fact, we haven't even changed our water or sewer rate yet, although water is before the Public Service Commission and sewer has been at the Public Works Board. We are changing meters, but generally your electric meter is not off by that much. So unless there's a significant failure in your electric meter, it's generally 2 to 4% off. And we're required to change them out every so many years, test them, and put in new meters. Same with water. Water does tend to slow more, but same thing, we go in and try and change them out. We're required by law to change them out every 20 years, but sometimes that's not always how it works. We believe that if you have an issue, you should call and have your meter tested and go through some other local processes. If you need to go through the Public Service Commission, that's always an option. They will do the same thing you do, so they'll call us and check. And so there's not really anything else they're going to do. They were the ones that authorized us to put in the AMI meters. They were the ones that have the rule that says we have to put them in. So I anticipate that will not change.
Is there any charge either by the Public Service Commission or by us for having it checked if you think you have a problem?
By us, no.
Okay.
What
What about Public Service? Do they
Public
charge?
Service Commission just tells us to check it.
Okay. So call us.
If they were doing an audit, but I don't think there would be anything that would drive them to do an audit based on the change in meters, because all meters do is read time and amount. They don't put in a rate. So they're not that sophisticated yet. What they do is they download to a computer, and the computer has an assigned rate, and that's how that is done. If it were a mistake and someone is putting in the rate in the computer, but that's something you should check. If you called in and looked, they would check that right away to make sure that that's done. Generally, what we see is fluctuation in days. You might go from 25 to 35, and in the one case that we saw, that was pretty significant. There was something else there. In that case, we generally send Greg Huffman out and have him do an investigation of what caused the change. Sometimes it's a piece of equipment that's gone bad in your house. Because it's very rare for a meter to speed up like that. There would have to be something really unusual. I used to say meters never speed up, they always slow down, but I'm not going to say that anymore. Corrosion control is moving forward. Most of the testing is done. The DNR and the EPA are, I guess, dissatisfied with the results, but not something that they weren't expecting. Which is to say that all that testing that we did is pretty inconclusive. Doesn't really tell them anything other than that what we're doing already is the best option. Brookstone is moving forward. So you'll note that Rosewood and Oak Brook are done. Probably see houses start going up there pretty soon. And Valley View and Autumn Crest are under construction, probably done in 3 weeks. The electric will be going in a couple weeks. So everything is pretty much on schedule and on track in that site with what we anticipated when we started doing that. Rock Lake Activity Center, they have spent all the money that we authorized for them to have. And so it would be good for you to go out and look at it. Apparently they have some pretty substantial improvements. I know that they really have a lot of people coming back.
Yep.
The 26 acres that's sold, the permits are all in. And they have their site plan in for review, so we'll see how that goes. Tower Drive, there are probably some construction work you'll see up there, and some houses going up. This month, you'll get the new utility billing.
Oh, really?
Yes, we went to a new form of utility billing, so you see a new style bill. Hopefully, it's not a problem. There are
Yeah, I think
information that goes along with it that helps you understand how the bill is done. And there will be another stuffer in there and for people to read, so I hope they read them. They don't throw them away. The census is moving forward, and so that's on the agenda tonight, so that'll be something of interest. And the 2020 budget, general fund budget is out. And you got an email. You click on the link. It takes you to where you put in a password. And you should see something like this. The expenditures for 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 gives you what was budgeted in 19 and what's budgeted in 20. And it changes for each line item that you drop on, so if you went to like facilities maintenance, it would change. Here's the revenues.
pretty impressive.
So when you look at the top line item here, it tells you the total budgeted expenditures, the total budgeted revenues, and the projected surplus or deficit.
So we will be looking at some budget meetings coming up in the near future.
Yes.
I just, for reasons of personal interest, I'm just wondering if, do we need to do we have to have a separate a place on the agenda to discuss when we will meet for those?
We can do that at the end when we
We
do
can.
our agenda, yeah. And, yeah, we were looking at before, the first reading is going to be the first meeting in October, which is coming up fast. So we thought maybe we'd do one before that meeting, and then there's a fifth Tuesday in October, so we'll see how they go. But you have full access to this all the time now. So, and you'll note that those line items expand and contract. So if you wanted to see all the expenses in like cable TV personnel, you can see them right there. Then you just click on them, you can see what the changes in them were from year to year. And it goes down through, just like the budgets used to be, all the same line items. On the outside edge, let's see if I can get there. There are these green boxes. There are these boxes. If they're green, you tap on it, and it'll open up a page. It'll give you more data. And then out on a little bit further out, there are attachments, and if it's green, you can click on it, and it will open a page, and it generally opens it in a PD, downloads it to your computer. And so it may not do it for me here right now, but it'll drop a PDF somewhere on your computer that you can then open, and it'll have, let me make sure that I got it. Oh, well. All the department heads have already had it, they've submitted it. That's why you see these areas here. They submitted their budget, and I got to approve it or disapprove it and edit it. So those are, as you go through this, you'll see all those in there. And they have, for every category, expenses similar to what you've seen in the past and what you see in your monthly budget report. And then the revenues are all at the top. They're all included in, like they historically were. They're the same thing, you just click the plus and it drops down. There's taxes. And if you need to, you just hit the plus again and it'll give you all the taxes, how they break down. Miscellaneous revenues, intergovernmental revenues. So you can see all that.
Well, lots of advances in budgeting compared to 5 years ago, big difference.
Yeah. A lot less paper.
Well, and also much more itemized at the fingertip.
Well, you get a lot more data, historical data, and I haven't got all the forecasting in, and I haven't got all the attachments in. I'll continue to work on those, and they'll become available to you as I get them in, and then you can see how that all goes, because then it goes back 5 years, it'll go ahead 5 years.
Forecasting, yeah.
Forecast. And then there's a dashboard, so it'll allow you to compare to other cities.
Okay.
So we'll continue to refine it, but I wanted to get it out as quick as possible because it's late, and it's taken a lot more cleaning than we originally anticipated.
Well, still, looks good to me.
I like it.
I think we're on the right track. So, thank you.
Are there
for
any
that.
questions?
No questions on that from me.
Probably as I use it. we have-
Just give me a call or stop in. We can go through it and check everything out. There's a spot where you can hide some line items because there's a lot of line items in there that we don't use anymore, but there's historical data that's relevant. But to be able to read and get it into a page that's easy to read, there's a spot where you can hide those line items. And that helps me a ton.
Okay.
Whenever you
So in other words, this is what you use as well as us.
Yeah, same with the department heads. We put it together, we send it out to them, they submit their requests, we go through it, clean it up, and then once I've got it to a point where it all balances out, then I submit it to you. So yeah, everybody that for the city that's working on a budget would see pretty much the same item.
Excellent. Good job. Okay. Anything else?
Not for me.
City Manager's report. All right, moving on then to item 8, acceptance of minutes of the Planning Commission for June 25th, 2019, Library Board, July 15th, 2019, Joint Rock Lake Committee, April 2nd, 2019, Joint Rock Lake Committee of May 7th, 2019, Joint Rock Lake Committee of June 4th, 2019, Public Works Board of July 9th of 2019, the Senior Advisory Board of August 8th, 2019, and the Zoning Board of Appeals of November 7th, 2018. And this kind of shows you all the people we have working in the city on committees, 'cause that's a lot of minutes. So we'd like those placed on file. All right, item 9, council business, Tavern Operator's License. Would you like to read that applicant's name for us, please?
Abigail Hale.
Okay, council has a copy of her application. Do I have a motion?
I move Abigail Hale's application.
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded to approve that application. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. Item B, discussion decision on request for a regular Class B beer and liquor license for El Mariachi. And do you have to read anything for that?
There's a prepared motion, so I'll just read the title.
Yes.
City Council Motion 19-9-2-1, authorizing the granting of Class B combination liquor beer license to El Mariachi LLC, DBA El Mariachi, 102 East Madison Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin.
Okay, let's see. And so we have choices of, has the option to select either of the alternatives. We have 2 alternatives in our packet, granting it or refusing it. I need a motion. Let's get a motion on the floor here.
I move adoption of motion 19-921, authorizing the granting of the Class B combination liquor license.
I need a second.
Second.
I have a second. Okay, Mike. All right. Now I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, or do we want to just go to a vote? All the material was there for us to read. Okay, so call the roll.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, moving on to item C, discussion and decision on the request for a regular Class B liquor license for Underground Hub LLC. Would you read that motion, please? I mean, that resolution.
City Council Motion 19-9-2-2, authorizing the granting of Class B liquor license to Underground Hub LLC, DBA The Hub, 128 East Madison Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin.
Okay. Choices are the same. I need a motion on this one. Someone want to make a motion?
I move adoption of 19-922. Where's my options?
Oh, it's in the,
It's option,
it's, I think, the first option.
it's first option too. My stuff won't come up.
Mhm.
To grant it. I want to grant it.
Yeah, it's
Whichever one that one is.
alternative number 1.
Alternative number 1.
Which is how they did do the resolution, so you're okay.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this one? Everybody is looking okay on it? Call the roll.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, and moving on to item D. Discussion and decision on approving the fee increase for the solid waste and recycling management. Let me get to that place on my computer here, just a second. So, now, we do have a motion, which we should put on the table and then discuss. Am I correct? Okay, good. Would you read the,
City Council Motion 19-9-2-3, authorizing city clerk to notify John's Waste Disposal Service, Inc., that the rate adjustment options have been reviewed and the city manager is authorized to sign a contract approving the 9.7% rate increase.
okay, now, we need a motion to discuss this, so anyone want to make a motion so we can discuss it?
I move adoption of motion 19923.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We can now open it for discussion. And what is the, how would the council like to proceed on this? We have a report from Steve, and we have 3 alternatives in that report, accepting it, and alternative 2 is the review the contract options during the 2020 fiscal year with a new contract in 2021 is alternative 2. And alternative 3 is reject the rate increase and prepare requests for proposals from 2020, for 2020. Discussion by council at this point.
I know we've heard of a bunch of issues
Yes.
since stuff is switched around, most notably stuff sitting out on the curb for long periods of time, waiting for large pickup. I know initially last year I was totally against switching over to the call model. But after talking with a lot of the citizens, they convinced me it would be okay, but then we see stuff sitting out on the side of the road for weeks on end. And folks getting frustrated because they're calling up and they can't get an appointment for 2 weeks or a week or more to get their stuff picked up, and they've already put their stuff on the curb. Granted, they shouldn't have put their stuff on the curb, but they did. So that is one of the big issues that I'm seeing with this contract. Also, the rise of the recycling costs due to whatever is happening. I'm just not sure it's fair to us to eat that cost for the rise in the recycling. So I wouldn't mind looking at somebody else, unless we get John's up here and he can give us some confidences that this is all going to be fixed. And with this contract, I would like it to go back to every one Thursday a month at the same rate, not have an extra charge. So those are some things that you're going to have to overcome to get us to stop our process to look for somebody else, because honestly, it's been very frustrating for this community with the changes that have happened. So that's my take on it. At this point, I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow the gentleman from John's to speak.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion, second. Would you call the roll to?
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm Brian Engiches from John's Disposal, and we were a little bit blindsided by the trouble, because we just hadn't heard about it with the call-in bulk program. What we can do to fix it is, we just need some more supervision, and we should have probably had a longer transition period where we just come through and clean it up and then leave people notices. I think people were not just made aware that they need to call. So what we
Well,
can,
you know, they were made aware of it, but there was also a guarantee from John's that flyers were going to go on doors, and we were going to have
That's
stuff to pass out to them, and that stuff never showed up.
We didn't get
So,
that.
Just,
well, right.
you
I
know,
mean,
for your information.
yeah, I don't think that we planned to put flyers on doors. I don't think we ever would have committed to that.
It was
They
said
did.
that you would have put, fires would be put on the receptacles.
On the cart, maybe.
On the cart and for everybody. But
Yeah.
we never got that.
No, right, and that was a big mistake, and I'm disappointed that it's just come to my attention. I mean, just literally this week or last week is the first that I heard there was a problem. So I think we need to communicate a little bit better. But I'm still convinced that, I mean, in other communities where we have this, it's a better program. That business of people having to wait until that end of the month, if they can call and we can come, you know, when they have the stuff all month long, is a better program. I think that once people are used to it, they would never want to go back to where you just pile it all out there at the end of the month. And when people talk to us on the phone, it kind of helps us to deal with the ones that are abusive, because we take a lot of stuff in that bulk pickup that's not included in the program that we're not supposed to take, but we clean it. We've always just cleaned it all up. But when they call in, then you know we have them in our system and we can talk to people. Like, we'll still clean it up, but then the next time they call, it's like, hey, the drivers will send a picture and say, hey, you know, this stuff has to be cut up, or it has to be in this size or this weight so we can handle it. And I think it's a better program. What we failed in is the transition, and I think we can start that up now, you know, and to fix the problem, I guess, is what, you know, and have it so that we get a little more supervision, clean it up, and then leave notices for people. We certainly can do that.
Are you basically coming through every Monday to do the bulk pickup? It's just for the people who
They've
called
been
in?
doing Thursdays, yeah, oh yeah. Oh, we've been picking up a lot of them, and everybody that calls, I mean, I just talked to the staff today, and they just said, I mean, they've been happy. I mean, it's a quick call. I mean, because it's a pleasant call. You call and you give the address, and especially the second time, once your name, address, phone number, and that is in the system, and then what it does for us is we have a worker. We have less. When you just come through and you have to do the whole city, you got to drive every street. You look around, and we didn't do great at that either. I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's people were calling, and we had to go back all the time because these drivers are driving down, they're looking, and then, oh, there's a couple of jugs of drain oil, or there's something small in the winter, there's things under the snow, there's things we're not even sure we're supposed to take it, you know, in different areas, like, you know, so Sandy Beach area, and some of these, you go, and it's like, do we take that or not? When they call us, we have a work order, it's mapped out, and we go right to the address that calls us, and there's just, our chances of failure are like really low. But if people put stuff out and don't call, well, you know, we can't get it. So
That's one of the big problems. People just don't want to call. You know, I'm one of those people. I've got stuff that I've stored up for a year, and I just almost refuse to call, just because I don't have the time to deal with it.
yeah.
I would like a set date and time that I can just drop it out there and it's gone. So that's me personally, though.
I don't think you'll find, I don't know anywhere else where people are doing it that way anymore, where you just put it out and you go through and just and do it all. It's difficult. We were even failing to always get it done because we send a crew and we just don't know how much is going to be out there, and those guys are out there long and late, and it's just we almost can't do it that way again. And I think if I'm going to tell you, if you're not happy with our service, I would encourage you to put it up for bid. I really would, because I think we've done a lot. We've worked hard here for a lot of years, and if this is the only problem, I don't want to try to talk you out of it. If you think that you can get better service from another company, I don't want to talk you out of that, because we have a lot of pride in what we do, and I strongly believe that this call-in system is a better system than what we had before, and we just can't really do it that way anymore. Where if that's going to be the thing, where that's the only way we can stay here is to put it out that way, then we're really not interested. We could finish the contract, maybe we could do 1 year that way, but we just can't do it anymore. I mean, with the labor thing and the way those trucks and drivers, and to get them to come and just really not know what's here, and the amount of loads that we would pull out of here on those Mondays, I mean, I don't know if you noticed it, how much was out here when we did that. It just, this way, at least when they call, we can schedule, we know how much we're gonna get, and then we'll schedule another one, a few days later. And we have come a couple times, twice in a week, Mondays and Thursdays here this summer, to clean it all up here, for sure. And as far as the rate increase, that is all about recycling. And the longer this goes, the earlier ones that we were putting quotes in were lower, and it just keeps getting worse. And I don't know, the market values on the recycling are so bottomed out, they're so terrible, and it's been 22 months now where those values have gone down, or been even, just 22 months in a row, and it's nearly put our company out of business.
Can you explain why that is?
There's two things. The first thing was it had to do with China. And this started before the tariff talks, the trade talks, all of that. It was back in the fall of 2017. And China has somewhat of an EPA now, I mean, which is, I guess, kind of new for them. And what was being shipped in, it started with plastics. And we, for years here, mixed plastic bales, never had a problem with water bottles, soda bottles, milk jugs, detergent bottles. Those are all easy to this day. They're easy to sell. Value's very low, but you can always market them. But it's the other plastics. So what would happen years ago here is that people would buy these bales, or they would take them for free, of all these mixed plastics, and then they would like mine out of that bale low-density polyethylene or certain types of plastics that they wanted, and the rest of it they would just landfill. So it would go in a big compactor and go to the landfill. Well, what happened in China was a similar thing, except they would mine out what they wanted, and what they didn't want was like land spread. I mean, I saw some of the pictures, and it's just ugly. I mean, there's just this plastic just on the ground, and and they don't have good landfills there. So their EPA guy and their new leader was like, no more garbage, and they just stopped it. Well, they kind of, I think, threw the baby out with the bathwater, because there really wasn't a problem with cardboard and paper, but they just said nothing from the U.S. And so the cardboard and the paper, about 40% of it in the United States was going to China, and just stopped. So there's a glut here of material starting 2 years ago, and our mills are that's what we're working in our local mills to take it, but there's just so much material, they can't almost take it all. And Georgia Pacific up in Green Bay saved our company, because for a while we couldn't get rid of it, and we would have had to shut our doors, or we would have to sell our business to a bigger operation that could get rid of it, because you can't be in a recycling business where you take all this material, then you sort it out, and then you can't get rid of it. We just couldn't continue like that. Well, Georgia Pacific really saved us, and they're taking our material now, and it's coming back a little bit, but the problem is none of this material is still going to China, and everything we buy from China in these shipping containers, it keeps coming. So it's in a box and it's here, and people recycle it. People are pretty good at recycling cardboard, and it just keeps coming, and paper, and there's a glut of it. And then the second problem is it's not a problem, I guess it's a good thing, but the oil, the fracking, the price of oil, and the natural gas, that's the main ingredient for plastics. So the virgin materials are cheap, so it makes the recycled materials lower and less demand, like they'd rather run, it's just less of a value for the recycled materials. So you got the China thing, not taking any of our material, and you have the low value of the plastics. And
So in other words, if I can interrupt, in other words, paper does not get, what does it get recycled into? Cardboard?
Well, they're starting to turn it back into cardboard, but it goes into some type of paper. A lot of it goes for tissue. They make, tissue mills, or they do go back into, they make them into cardboard or other paper products. And so that's what they do, but they just have, and it's funny that there's a huge demand. I mean, it's like the Amazon, the amount of boxes they need, but it's like these paper mills just have almost free feedstock. So I don't know, maybe that's a good investment to invest in. I don't know, but they're getting their materials really cheap. So what's happened is the economics of it is what it costs to sort it out to recycling is more than the landfill now. So it costs more per ton to dump a ton of recycling on the floor and sort it than it does to dump a load of, a ton of garbage in the landfill. So, and we built our company, because we don't have a landfill, so we kind of built it on recycling. Well, that thing just boomeranged, it just came around and nearly cut our head off, because now it's not a valuable material, it's a big negative. I think the thing to tell the citizens what you want to do, I mean, we're asking for $1.25 increase, which pretty much covers that. The difference, but it's not going in the landfill. We are able to market, it is getting recycled, it's just an incredibly low value is really the problem with it. And then we have issues with labor, and so now that it's got a low value, the paper mills are kind of demanding, they don't really need it, so they demand higher quality. So we have to slow our lines down, put more labor in it, and then we have to invest in more expensive equipment to make this stuff better than it ever was before, because they can be kind of fussy now. So that hurts us too. So it's just kind of a, and I think you're going to find that, anywhere. If you just search Google, recycling in the USA, recycle China, I mean, it's nonstop reading about, and this is, there's hundreds of communities across the nation that are just dropping their programs. They're just not recycling anymore. Here in Wisconsin, there's a state law that requires us to continue to recycle, and to me, I think, most people would say, well, what do we get? Why are we doing it then? Well, like I said, it's less in the landfill. So if we continue to recycle that, they don't want the raw material really, but it's still fewer landfills in the future, which is probably the reason why, we would want to continue doing it.
Is there a negative attitude towards recycled paper, recycled plastics?
It's just there's a glut of it.
On the
It's-
part of the consumer?
The consumer, the only thing that the consumer does wrong is they put plastic bags in the recycling, and that just kills us. Plastic bags need to go in the garbage. They Walmart bags, any bread bags, anything like that. What happens is it wraps around our equipment, and we have screens that have rubber sprockets, and the paper and the cardboard runs across the top. Well, when all this plastic runs around it, then everything goes across, and then you get contaminants, because the bottles and cans, they fall through and they roll back down. Well, when that whole thing gets wrapped up with plastic, then it's just like a conveyor, and everything, it hurt. And so then we just have to stop it, and guys, you have to cut it off, clean it, and they do that a couple times during the day. And cardboard boxes really need to be flattened, and people put, they smash them, and then there's still plastic and that in it, and then we can get loads rejected because they're so fussy on the quality now. So it's really, if you ask people what they can do to help, it's just make sure you flatten all your boxes and don't put any plastic bags in the recycling. Those two things make a huge difference.
Perhaps if you had a flyer that went out with our utility bills, because they could fold it and stick it in the envelope with the utility bills, that explains that you don't want garbage
Right.
bags
Well, Right.
and those things, and also that would better explain the call-in program. If you're coming every Monday to do bulk pickup for the people who've called in, that would give citizens some predictability. They would still have to call in, but then they would know when they're
I think
getting.
it's Thursdays is what it is, yeah, Thursdays. But
I thought it was
they've been
Mondays.
doing some Monday, I know they've been coming Thursdays too.
Okay, well, if people knew that it's going to be every week, but you have to call in, then they can have some predictability at home about, okay, this week we can't do it, but maybe next week, and then they could call and make their appointment. That if that got better explained to people.
Well, right, and it is a little flexible depending on the time of the year and how many calls we get, but it's within 7 days. I mean, it'd never go more than 7 days. If they call, it's within 7 days of the call that we'll be there. And if if that day gets too low to where our guy can't do it, we either, then it's okay, we'll do it a couple days later, we try to, schedule it with other communities and to be more efficient with it. We're trying to gain some efficiency, but I'm really embarrassed, and I'm really sorry that this went. And I believe that it was our fault. I mean, it was just not paying attention, not enough supervision, and not enough communication, and not enough just knowing what was going on. We just didn't realize there was a problem until literally last week.
Yeah, a suggestion, could we get something, a short video that could be put on the website explaining this? so that people who visit the website can see it and
Yeah.
hear about it. Maybe that's an alternative way of getting the message out, and because I've been following the recycling, and yes, I've heard the problems and stuff like that, and then you get also articles about the oceans becoming dumps for plastic, huge mats of plastics off the Hawaiian Islands, and we've got to start taking and recycling. We used to do it. I can remember hearing the rag man coming around and picking up old used clothes.
Well, during World War II, we were doing a lot of recycling.
And we've gotten away from it, and everything has to be new. So
People, residents are doing a pretty good job though of saving. I mean, they are filling those carts up. I mean, you see them out there. So people in Lake Mills, I think, are doing a pretty good job of it. In fact, it's almost like that plastic bag thing. I think some people are trying too hard. It's like, well, this is plastic, you can recycle it. They put, and they didn't know. And I mean, we're set up to it slows us down. I mean, it's not.
it's plastic, so why can't
Right,
we recycle it?
Right. So if that's the thing, some people are trying too hard maybe, but that we get a lot of recycling out of here, and that used to be just the best thing ever because it was less in the landfill, more recycling, and now that swing, I mean, the negative, like we use other competing facilities, and we pay, over $50 a ton to dump recycling. I mean, it's getting in the swing. In 2 years ago, there was a plus value, and even into this budget, we were falsely kind of assuming that those markets they'd have to come back, and then they just didn't. So that's why we're getting hurt really badly right now the last 2 years on these values of these recyclables. So it's a $60 or $70 a ton swing, and each home in Lake Mills has almost a third of a ton, over a fourth of a ton. So a fourth of $60 that's $15. I mean, if that ton costs us, and I think it's 70 compared to what it used to be. At least say $60 for easy figuring swing, because it used to be a positive value. Now it's a negative 50. And if it was a positive 10, we credited the account $10. Now it's a negative 50. That's $60 a ton difference. And each home has over a fourth of a ton. If you have a fourth of a ton, that's $15 right there. So it's just.
So another question is, to replace China as our dumping area. So in other words, what's happening is a lot of the recyclables are going to the dump. In other words, our dumps here. Is that right?
Well, when people just do a bad job, things end up in a landfill. I would think like the state of Wisconsin and the United States was some of the best recycling, anywhere. I mean, it has had value and it made sense to do it, and the programs are just going crazy. In fact, that might be one of our problems is there's so many of these huge recycling facilities that have been built in the last 10 years that's just, and now they just kind of keep doing it, even though it's not like a free market thing, because the value's not there. Where it used to be, if something had value, you'd save it. If it wasn't, you'd dispose of it in a landfill. Well, now they just kind of keep recycling it because these programs are all set up, all these cities. I mean, you can't just stop that and say, okay, no, we're not going to do that for a few months. The people have the carts, the trucks come through, there's contracts, and that's nationwide. So this country is recycling a lot of stuff. And right now, it would almost help if they didn't, because, like I said, the supply is too big, for the demand. But again, what we win is that that stuff's not ending up in the landfill. It's a bad value.
There are two issues here. One is Wisconsin requires you to recycle, so it's not going in the landfill.
Right.
But I have read a lot of states that have stopped landfilling and are allowing the recyclables to be landfilled.
Yeah, stop recycling, yeah.
Yeah, and even in California, which is unusual. So you, when you're losing money on a ton of recycling, you have to look at the options, and some of them don't have the, like California doesn't have the option for collecting more money, so they had to figure out how to cut the costs, and one was to stop recycling. But if you're looking at, from a standpoint of bidding it out and trying to capture that, I know that Brian does a lot of this, and particularly within our region, but you're gonna have a very tough time finding somebody who's willing, they might come in for a year and do the weekly, or the every month pickup, but it's not gonna last. And you're gonna pay a lot for that service if you do get it. And, the cost overall, you're gonna find that they're all pretty much right in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I still haven't
You just
heard
got
anything
Watertown?
that convinces me that that cost should be pushed off onto our citizens. I still haven't heard anything that convinced me that it should be pushed off to our citizens. So,
Who do you want to pay for it?
I mean,
The people that are
none of the,
taking
none of
the
the garbage companies are gonna pick it up. They're all gonna come in with about the same cost. And so you're gonna get a bid that's all, pretty much right down the line. Brian's been the low one in the region several times now, but it's, I mean, they're close. And I heard the same comments from several other people in the region with other cities, and they ended up, when they went out for bids, this is what they ended up with.
If we did go request for proposals, wouldn't we have to have enough lead time for this budget year anyway, that it wouldn't happen in time?
We could probably get the proposals out. I don't know that that was why the second option was in there, is that it takes, generally, if you do it right, it takes a good 6 months to get a good RFP out.
And if we went out for requests for proposals, there's no guarantee that John's is going to give us the best proposal that, like what we've got now. On an RFP, it might come in even higher.
Yes, there's a likelihood that we could see higher. I'm not going to guarantee that. Usually when you get bids, you get a little bit of competition and it drops but it's not going to be substantial. But to turn around an RFP takes about a good one. And, I mentioned that there are consultants who do this work so that you compare apples to apples. You write your plan so that you're doing so you get an opportunity to sit down and think about, well, how do we want this service to work, and what services do we want provided? Because there are a lot of other services that we can start putting in there. There's a list, I went through a list of about 75 other items that you could add. So do you want to go that route? And
how was our contract written last year? What did it stipulate for future years? I don't remember.
as,
It remained the same after the adjustment last year, where if the proposed increase was above a certain threshold, then we'd be having this discussion. But it was based on the number that was granted in the contract last year.
every year
It
we
should
have,
stay the same, is what you're saying.
No, they're afforded a regular increase, cost of doing business increase, and if they propose above that threshold amount, then we have the ability to terminate the contract and go out for RFP. That's correct, isn't it?
that's correct.
And that's what happened this year.
Yes.
and last year as
We
well.
we have previously, last year, they gave us the option of going to the bulk program or an 11% increase, and we opted for the bulk program.
And we see how well that worked out.
Wow.
This year, they didn't even do that. They just said that there's a cost there. We have in the past received ones that were high. It used to be that gas was a pretty substantial problem for them. And so we would receive high bids. There were a couple times where we've done this, reviewed it, and said, yeah, we'll just stay with the contract. There was one time where they came in with a high bid, but we extended the contract and they gave us they lowered it by a percentage. I think it was, they still hit the CPIU, but
I would volunteer that we could just go like to the first quarter if you want to. I mean, if you guys really, if you're not happy with us and our program and you want to put up for a bid, we could just, go try to work out something where we go the first quarter of next year. Now, I would hope that you would instead give us a chance, to finish the contract and to fix this bulk call-in bulk program. I mean, we've been here a lot of years, and we worked really hard for you guys. And I think if you look at our rate history, I mean, we had a ton of years where, I mean, we got, 0% increase, 1%. We haven't been just trying to hold you guys up. This, my side of this story is that we just kind of got blindsided, and that was our failure for not communicating well enough with you guys. We can certainly fix that. So my side of the story is if we fix it and you use the call-in program, I think your residents will like it better. They would not want to go back to waiting for that one pickup per month. And we can't hardly do it anymore. I don't think you're going to find anybody else that can do it. I really don't. And I mean, and we've bid on a lot of stuff, not a real lot this year, but the few that we did, it's almost like people are shooting from the hip. You just don't know. I mean, it's really with the labor thing and the recycling thing. Everybody's a little bit afraid right now in this industry of what and it just seems like the earlier ones were maybe better, and as the later it goes, as the recycling just keeps going down, people are getting more and more afraid, and the bids just keep getting higher for recycling is what I see. So I'd really like the chance to fix the bulk, and then this is our last year of the contract, and I think if we've worked here a long time, and I think we've proven that we're just not trying to hold you up, and so that's, where we're coming from.
Yeah, it's just hard to justify a 10% increase when most people barely get a 1% raise, if anything. How much did the folks in the city get last year?
1.5%.
1.5%. But then we're going to give you a 10% raise to do your job. It's just very, very hard to justify it. Not saying we won't, but it just doesn't seem fair to the citizens of the city. But that's just my opinion.
Well, the increase of $1.25 a month doesn't sound as bad as talking about a 9.7% increase. Although it is a 9.7% increase, it is in reality $1.25 a month. Is that something that we would have in the actual rates to the customer? It would be $1.25, or would it be something else?
Betsy provided a document, and we get some money from the state to help offset. We were a little bit negative last year, so I think we were looking at $13.95 as the actual, so it would be about 19 cents less than what the actual rate is.
What I look at is the anticipated revenues and the anticipated expenses, and I try to even those out with a rate to get as close to zero between the revenues and expenses. And I consider what we get from the state for a grant. So between all of those three, I try to ballpark it and get a good estimate of what a possible rate would be the lowest we could go and not, have a deficit in our budget.
And what is that rate?
It's like
That's where he said the
$1.06 it was like.
$13.95 would be a little bit of a deficit, but not very much.
It's in that first paragraph, in the introduction, it comes out to about $1.06.
Okay.
per household.
Does the DNR still exempt most of the plastics from recycling, where it's just number ones
Well,
and twos?
Yes and no. The ones and twos are the biggest percentage. So that you don't have to do the 3 through 7s, but the 3 through 7s is a smaller percentage. Like most of the plastics that are in those carts are ones and twos. Number
Okay.
ones are water bottles, soda bottles, and number twos are detergent bottles, milk jugs, oil bottles,
Plastic straws.
plastic straws. That we don't say plastic straws. I really hate the paper ones, though.
Well, what were you, I didn't get, what's the message on the plastic straws here? Where do they go? Do they go in
It's
the
just a
garbage
big.
can, or
It's
do
a
they go
big.
in-
Yeah, in the garbage.
Okay, that's what I
Straws go in
wanted
the
to-
garbage, please.
I like the suggestion about doing a video, and because it's a public service, even our facilities could provide that video for our customers, that then the program, both the recycling and the call-in program could be well explained and filmed here with you working with our videographer. And it could be put on our website, it could be put on Facebook, and people would get the message probably better than getting a flyer in their utility bill. Because I don't often read what's in my utility bill either, other than the bottom line of what do I have to pay each month. If we continue the contract for one more year, it sounds like our citizens would be paying $1.06 a month more. If we were to continue it for 2020, with the public education part of it, and then we see halfway through the year it's not doing any better, we would have plenty of time then to put it out for bid, couldn't we?
We'd have to think about it. That's not something we normally spend some time thinking about. We'd probably have to be looking at it in April. Because you're gonna wanna get the bid out, you're gonna wanna get the bid prepared, which would probably, from what I see, it looks like it would take until, we're gonna have to sit down and go through and discuss what we wanna see in the bid package and how we wanna structure. And then we have to put it out for bid, then we have to bring it in, do the analysis, score them, then we have to kind of pick out which one we want, and then that has to go to council, and they have to go through the selection, then we have to budget it. So, yeah, by this time next year, we will want to know who we were selecting.
And in the meantime, if you did an education program so people stopped doing things that makes your operation more expensive, it might be that by working with us and with the citizens, you could get your costs reduced, and that might be reflected in what your proposal would be next year.
It helps, I mean, that's for sure.
Well, I'm also wondering, unfortunately, it costs money, is ads, since we're an mad nation, having ads on the radio, TV, newspaper, but that costs money.
Facebook.
Facebook.
Well, I mean, our biggest problem is just the value of these materials. If people put stuff wrong in there, we deal with it. I don't think it's really hurting us that much. The biggest thing we need to get the message out is on that people have to call to get the bulk picked up.
Right.
So that's the main thing that we got to get the message out on, so.
Would you repeat that?
The main message that we have to get to the public is that if they need their bulk items collected, they have to call.
Well,
Personally, I thought it would like kind of go away, because the first time you put something out and then we don't take it because you didn't call, you'd think that they would then know.
it doesn't work that way.
So they just keep putting it out.
Yeah, that's exactly what
calling.
they do.
And they get resentful.
And they talk about it and say, they didn't pick up my garbage, and then they just put out more garbage, so.
Huh.
Yeah, I know. It's just kind of.
They didn't take my boxes because they
Yeah.
weren't flat,
So, well,
stuff like that.
what are you, I'm wondering if maybe we can ask the press to help with the cardboard boxes flattening, and that, that plastic bags go in the garbage, not in the recycling.
There you go.
Those two things, I think we could somehow do something, both on the website for the newspaper and maybe something to help make people realize, Christmas comes and they just throw out all of the boxes and they haven't flattened them. And I go down the road and I feel like I want to stop and flatten boxes as I go down the street, but people don't realize they need to do that. So I think that we need to do more with that. But in the meantime, and it's 1 and 2 are the only two plastics.
No, it's 1 through 7s can be put in the cart.
Really?
We've just had no problems getting rid of the 3 through 7s kind of come and go, but our instructions are that you put those in. The 3 through 7s is a very small percentage of what's in that cart. There's very few of them in your house.
Put it in the recycling.
Yeah,
Okay.
any plastic
All the
container.
plastic, except plastic bags.
Just not plastic
No
bags.
plastic
Or, you know,
bags.
right, no plastic bags. You know, like, and like those
Well-
hangers and, you know, things that wrap are bad.
A lot of plastic bags can be returned at the stores.
Right, right.
Kohl's will let you return it in, and a lot of stores will, Pick and Save has a place to put them. So if you can return those at the stores and not put them in either of your bins, that would be really quite nice, right?
Well, yeah, for sure. Then, I mean, they are recyclable, just not in this program. I mean, there's almost nothing that goes in the landfill that you couldn't, one way or another, recycle. It's just like what's practical and what's in the program. Some things it would just cost just an immense amount of money to demanufacture it and separate all the different types of materials. But if you got it ground up in full truckloads, you can pretty much recycle anything.
What about Christmas paper, wrapping paper?
Yeah, wrapping paper is recyclable. So that's something probably to, if we're doing notices now, because that's a big thing that people don't do. But like the ribbons and the plastic ribbons and bows and that is garbage. But the
That's
wrapping
garbage.
paper itself,
Wrapping paper
Yeah,
is,
the
put it in a
paper.
plastic bag and throw it in.
yeah,
the
right in
recycle-
just right in the not in a bag, just put it right in your.
Oh, yeah, you don't want the plastic
Just put it
bag.
right in your recycling toter. Yeah.
Okay, all right, put it in paper bags. Okay, now, we have a motion on the table, which is to, could you read back the motion we have?
Authorizing the city clerk to notify John's Waste Disposal Service, Inc. that the rate adjustment options have been reviewed and the city manager is authorized to sign a contract approving the 9.7% rate increase.
Wasn't this,
No, my motion was to bring him up to allow him to speak.
oh, that, we didn't do
No, Vicky made a motion and Doug seconded it
Correct.
to,
on the
Approve the motion.
prepared motion. to
Mike's
approve.
was a suggestion.
Right,
okay, Mike's was to bring him up.
yes.
Okay, but we still don't have a motion on the
You
table.
do.
Yes, you
He's got
do.
option one.
Option one, okay.
9.7.
Okay, I'm sorry, good thing I asked. So-
We always do the motions in a positive,
Right,
so
right.
we know if yes or no.
My sense is that I think we need more education to see whether this program works.
Yeah, I don't think we can judge it yet, I really don't.
And I think we've been, as has been mentioned, we haven't had enough communication, though there's a lot of communication that goes on. And I think we need to watch it very carefully and see whether the picking up the recycling once a month when you phone it in, not so on, actually works, and take a look at the rates for next year.
And
Yeah, I know it, I saw the 9.7, I said, that's a pretty big jump, but I guess right now, I guess I can see it, though I don't like it, but yeah,
Well,
I
and
guess I'd postpone the decision.
it doesn't behoove us from ever getting bids from other companies. We could still do that. We could do that 3 months from now if we decide we want to do it. But we need to make a decision on the contract that's in front of us for next year, because that's got to get in the budget.
I don't think that we'd have enough time to go out for bids before
Right.
we have to have the decision this year.
So I think we should go
But we
ahead.
could certainly try to revisit this along about April to take a look to see, did the education work? How is it looking for future years? And would it make sense to go out for bid then?
What is the phone number that they're supposed to call for bulk pickup?
It's on that card I gave you. It's
Oh, yeah.
262-473-4700.
Okay, I'm going to repeat it again for people, we have a lot of listeners.
Yeah.
262-473-4700.
That's right.
That's the number you call when you have something big that they need to come and pick up. And you call it, and then you tell them who you are, and then they will set up an appointment and a day of the week.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
And so forth. And once a month is free.
You get one per month, right?
You get one time per month.
And
It
we're here
doesn't-
every week, so we get,
Right.
you know. And so, and then that's 8 to 4:30, Monday through
Oh.
Friday. 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, and from 8 to noon on Saturdays.
So they leave a message if they call after
No,
that time?
no.
No, they cannot. Okay,
No.
so 8 to 4:30, and what time on Saturday?
8 to 12.
8 till noon on Saturday. Okay. Now.
Is there an opportunity for somebody to email you?
Some people, you can't, some people do email, just office@johnsdisposal.com. And that's all on our website too, johnsdisposal.com. They can visit our website.
Because for people who work during the day, those hours for making the phone
just don't
calls
work.
might not work, but sending you an email to get the conversation going could probably be taken care of through email.
Is that true?
Yep, they can email.
So, and then would
We
you
like
call-
them, especially the first time, we like them to call to set up the account. We like to talk to them and see, you know, what they have there, so,
Mhm.
you know, but we do take emails, but we prefer to phone call. It's a
and,
very quick, painless phone call. And the person that answers the phone, you don't get put through to one of those things where you got to push this button for that or this or that. The person that answers the phone sets you up the service.
Actually,
it goes
live
pretty
and
quick.
breathing, huh?
Right, Americans.
And people should probably make the phone call and then put things out, not the other way around.
Ideally, right. Yes.
because it's going to take time to get there.
I really think that what's happened is the opposite of the goal of this program. This program, when everybody gets used to it and they know that you have to call, and then the material's only out there when they call and we're scheduled to come and get it. With the old program, people were putting it out well ahead of time and it sat there for a while and it you know, and what happened is because of our failure to get this transition set up right, it's what we're trying to avoid. So I think the future, when everybody understands and they get used to it, it's a cleaner city. They call and it's a painless call and we come and we get it within a week and they can do it when they schedule their project. They don't have to, you know, you want to clean out your garage. I mean, does everybody wait till the day before the third Monday to clean out their garage? You know, how does that work, right? The way it used to be.
Well, and I think the thing that is nice is when people move and they have a lot of garbage, they could call and say, we're moving out on December 29th, and then you can say, well, we'll be there on January 1st, 2nd.
There's always a
whatever.
shortfall of the old program because most people's rent, most people, it's the end of the month, and I think you guys were the third Monday.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
It was a problem, and they would sit there for 3
it was a
weeks.
problem. It sat out there. So I'm just so sorry about how this went. But what you're complaining about is one of the reasons why we do this, because it fixes that. But we just had a bad transition. I hope that you can see that. And we really want to work with you in every way to fix it if you'll give us a chance here for this last year of our contract.
Well, I was just going to say, my last comment will be the proof will be in the pudding. We asked for education stuff last year, and we didn't get it, and now we're asking for more education stuff and more in-depth and extensive education stuff, so we're asking more of you. We'll see if we get it. And
And as Vicki said, you know, if you do want to work with our staff and do something that we can put on our website, we can do that.
We'd be happy to do that.
You know, but, and I think there's been a learning curve. I mean, people have figured out that, hey, this didn't work. I put it out on the third Monday, and it didn't go anywhere. And it still didn't go anywhere. So now the people are talking, and then people are saying, well, did you call? And they'll say, well, I didn't know I had to call. So that's what I'm seeing happening on my street. They're getting
I've seen a lot of
educated.
stuff.
Yeah,
Folks
but-
saying I called, or for whatever reason, somebody said I had a bunch of extra boxes, so I folded them, tied them up, put them beside the bin, and they're still there.
But they didn't call.
Yeah, but
But
something
they-
like that,
Mm-hmm.
get that guy's butt out of the truck and pick him up. Put him in the truck.
Well, it's
don't care
a
if it
little
can't
hard
fit in
too,
the bin.
because the opening for the trucks for the automatic is up on top.
Well, and so often, I mean, if it's good flattened cardboard that was flattened
They
and
shouldn't
stacked
leave it.
nicely, they're not supposed to, the driver's not supposed to take that. It's supposed to be, use a bulk pickup, or it's got to be in the cart. But we tell the driver that he's supposed to get out and throw it in. But I think a lot of times it's not like that. It's like you get there and there's boxes and there's other stuff in them, and now, is that garbage or is that recycling? What is that? And that's where we run into the problem. And what I said is, it's enormous problem that people don't flatten their boxes. I think it's highly unlikely that people that did a nice job, and I would like to kick that driver in the rear if he left nice flattened boxes. But I'm telling you, a lot of times that's not what it is. It's boxes that are not flattened, and then is it recycling, is it garbage, what do you do with it?
Especially after holidays where gift giving is, they just throw out the boxes untouched.
Yeah, they have to be flattened.
Well, can we have the motion on the floor for them, so we're ready to vote, right? Are we ready to vote over here? Okay, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
No.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-1.
And hopefully we can get these things going that we talked about tonight.
Yeah, I'll be personally involved, so,
Thank you.
call, if you have a problem, call the office and leave a message for me, and then I'll come over, talk to you, I'll take a look at the problems.
Thanks.
I'm going to work on this, so I appreciate your confidence in us, and I'm very sorry that it went this way.
Okay, well, we'll get it fixed.
Thank you.
And thank you to the leader for whatever role they can play in helping get this message out. Okay. Maybe we can get an icon of Santa at Christmas. Santa says, flatten your boxes or something. So, okay. That takes us to item E. Yes, Resolution 1944. Can you read that for us?
Resolution 19-44, approving boundary and project plan for tax incremental District Number 7, City of Lake Mills in Jefferson County, Wisconsin.
I'm getting there, okay. So this is actually being brought back to us because it kind of didn't meet all the qualifications of the state or something.
Yeah.
And
Now,
then
the
they had
annexation that we
redone.
did last year
Yeah.
went one meeting too long.
Yep.
So this is old business being regenerated into
Done.
new business so that we can get rid of it. So anything else is?
It's the same as last time.
Do I have a motion?
We
Now,
do
this-
have Mark Sauer here,
Okay.
who is the planner. So if you have
Oh.
any questions for Mark about what's being done.
So, let's get a motion on the floor. Do I have a motion for this?
I move adoption of Resolution 1944, approving boundary and project plan for TID number 7.
Second.
Okay. And this has gone through the planning commission again, and everything is cleared up. Would you like, just come on up to the podium in case we have a couple questions? And I think I have just one. So in this process, did anything change from the old one to this one now?
I would say some of the financial tables were updated, a couple $100 changed here and there, but no, other than that.
Overall, just a redo?
Yeah, it's just running the process is what it was, because the annexation wasn't completed before the JRB meeting to approve it. So it's just running that process. They wanted to see the annexation all the way through that process, and then the TID process play out once the annexation was completed.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Any other council members have questions for him about it before we vote on the motion? It's kind of like old work.
We just have to do it at the right time. And
Yeah,
now's the right
we
time.
jumped the gun.
We did.
We're just too good in with Lake Mills. We just
Too efficient.
too efficient. No other questions? Holy cow. Oh, let's wait for Vicki to come back. I don't think she expected us to be so efficient. So anything that you saw in the process that you were involved with that would be valuable for us to know?
I guess it's just a lesson learned that finish your annexation before you try to go through the TID process in the future.
We cheated and we ran the joint review board before the annexation.
Right.
Because we were done with everything before the deadline from the state. But the joint review board, we had them meet earlier because we had to, technically, they're supposed to meet before the council. So we should have had the meeting done, the annexation done, council meeting before, and then the joint review board would pass it, and then the council would pass it. But
But now we
we
know.
thought we could let the annexation slide until the council meeting.
We'll get educated on how they want it done.
Sometimes it's hard to get that annexation document, and, because you remember the state sat on it for quite a while because there were some oddities in the annexation document that Dwayne eventually cleaned up.
So, so this is the land north of the interstate
Yes.
and the few pockets of it that are south of the interstate that are, how do you describe them? Just, they aren't part of the city yet. So it's not anything new. We've already done this once already, and
Yeah, it's an area that's in the city. They're all in the city. There were some small annexation problems in some areas along here that there were multiple parcels that the owner owned. And we had to get those cleaned up. It's not as clean as it looks in this document right here. There were some parcel problems in this area right here because the parcels are, part of this is actually from this one up here, and then there's a little sliver that came from somewhere else, and so the parcels that that one right there, it was an oddball, and it threw us, so we had to go back and rework it all, and that's what held us up.
we're actually ready to vote, Vicki, but we waited for you to vote with us. So, well, then let's call the roll.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
And thank you for coming and make you wait here all night. So where do you come from?
Madison.
Pardon me?
Madison.
Madison, okay. Well, have a safe drive home.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Resolution 1945, would you read that, please, for us?
Resolution 19-45, proclamation regarding 2020 census.
Okay. Steve, do you have anything you want to say before we do a motion, or just do a motion? Should we do a motion? I mean,
You can do it either way.
does anybody want to do a motion?
I'll move to
There's-
approve.
Okay, I got two starts. Somebody's, keep going.
Go ahead.
Steve, did-
Go
I'll
ahead.
move to approve resolution 19-45.
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Now, Steve, do you have anything you want to say? Or are we just, we're just fine?
It's along the lines of, this is something where actually the council president would go around and try and find people from the appropriate organizations to serve on a committee. And basically what they're going to try and do is get the information to the people who are historically hard to count. So minority populations, kids under 5, and seniors. So what they like using is, organizations like Rotary and the Lions. So someone that represents them to have material available to help people. Churches are historically great. Schools are great at disseminating information. If you have a kid in school, they send a ton of information home. So having those organizations willing to help disseminate the information and utilize the people who are available for the census count. The more accurate the census count, the better the revenue shares are, which is always popular with us. better for who gets what representation during the dividing up of the political districts.
So more gerrymandering,
Yes, more accurate gerrymandering.
more accurate, gotcha.
So those are the types of things but it really, what it does is, if Wisconsin is undercounted and Illinois is overcounted, they get more representation, so you want to make sure you have a good a good count, so that you represent the state as effectively as possible. And so they want to make sure people know that the count's out. It's going to be, they're going to try and do more of the online stuff, so the more that they can send it out and motivate people to fill that out, the happier everyone will be, because then what's left, they have to go out and actually go door to door, which is expensive and hard, and people aren't always cooperative. So you just try and do the best you can, and the people who are willing to cooperate, but just don't know what they need to do, this is a big help. And these organizations generally have very good contacts to make sure that people know. The one that always surprises me is kids under 5. I just don't know why they're undercounted, especially if their parents are counted correctly. What kind of information makes it so that they don't count kids under 5? They're not in schools, I understand that, but the elderly, I understand why they probably are undercounted in minority populations, but they're, in Lake Mills, there are unusual groups that tend to be undercounted, so it's good to have this type of committee together. We did not have one the last time, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't.
I'm not sure I am clear on, okay, you mentioned me as being a person working with this committee, because I'm the chairperson of the council, but it doesn't really say.
It doesn't say you have to be, but the way it would work is you're the one that would make the contacts and make the appointments. You don't have to be the one on the committee, but you would be the one making the appointments. So,
I don't have a problem doing this, but somebody's going to have to explain what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah,
you just make the contacts with the appropriate organization, have Heather send them a letter and say, hey, we'd like someone to serve on this complete count committee for the census. Could you appoint someone? And then when they give the appointment, you schedule meetings and you get to appoint whatever government person you want to be on that, to work with them and go from there. The census person is actually the one who runs the meetings.
Do I get to meet that person? Like, sort of, like right away kind of thing?
You can.
Does this start immediately? Or is there a later date for this committee to start?
It's pretty much up to you.
But the
The
count
earlier you
starts
start
when?
it, the less work you're doing on it in the spring.
Is there a census person appointed already for our area?
Yes. I've met with her twice already. Her name is Patty Gillette.
She from the city?
No, she's not from the city. I sent you an email with her email address in it and all the additional information for complete count. There were links to all the complete count information.
Oh, look. Otherwise, I may have to have you resend it. Let's see. Well, do you want that to be done? Is that the wishes of the council?
Well, I think anything we do to make sure our census is accurate is worthwhile.
Can I get other people on the council to help?
Yeah, you can get the
Look at
vice,
you.
you can get the vice president to help.
But maybe, Okay, well, let's see. We have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Hey,
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, well, we'll see what we can do to get everybody included, even if you're only 3, or 2, or 1, or 0. Okay. All right, I'll talk to Patty Gillette and see what's happening.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 1946. Would you read that, please?
Resolution 19-46, establishing schedule of assessment for weights and measures.
Okay, just still getting back to that. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Okay, I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. This is housekeeping, correct? Call the roll.
We've done it every year since
there might
2000.
be one correction here
oh.
with Century being.
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
going to ask that, too.
Well, yeah,
I can,
That's just part of the memo.
so.
Or for budgeting and
Century does get charged because this was for the period ending July 1st, 2018.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So we'll try to collect it, but they did have the license, so they should be
on the list.
in the list
Okay,
for the assessment.
thank you.
Thanks for asking. That was a good clarification. All right, now call the roll.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye,
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, and then when you're ready, you can read the ordinance 785A for no parking zones on Main Street.
It's ordinance 1206.
Yep, 1206.
Okay. I'll be reading it, and what I'd
Oh,
like you to do is, if you can, take out your map, and let's go through it from the memo that's attached to the city council packet.
Yep. I thought your map was very good. I
Well,
didn't have any trouble.
Dwayne Vandermoos helped me a lot. He's-
Yeah, I was going to say, I personally did not have any trouble following the map from the ordinance.
Excellent. That was the intent there. So
Yeah.
what I'm going to do, I'll read this in its entirety. I'm going to avoid the stricken portions. Obviously, those are no longer in ordinance. They're being removed. The bold sections are the changes that are being made to the ordinance. So that's either change descriptions or a new description, something that's added. This is all in contemplation and basically in compliance with the Highway 89 rebuild. So right now, this ordinance is really just addressing no parking zones on North and South Main Street, and it's consistent with the project that was accepted and that you voted to move forward with, a couple of years ago already. So, ordinance 1206, amending City of Lake Mills ordinance, section 615-15, no parking zone, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin. The City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin does ordain as follows. Section 1, City of Lake Mills Ordinance Section 615-15, no parking zones applicable to Main Street, specifically Main Street, is hereby amended as follows. So the first section, the name of the street is Main Street. It's on the east side. From Woodland Beach Road south to the city limits will be no parking.
Oops. Hang on, got them changed to a different map here. I was on the one by Madison Street.
Well, that one isn't specifically shown because it's so far south.
Oh.
So
We don't have anything to see. Okay, got it.
I have them marked ABC and actually just use
All right.
That's Madison.
yeah, so A is right there. And then it works south that direction.
Yeah, that's what I had.
You have, it's kind of tough to see.
But that's at the north end.
Yes. That's, the first change is this, we go basically north to south in the ordinance. Okay, the second section is Main Street, east side from the north side curb of East Madison Street to a point 53 feet north. That is documented as A on the map. The third one is no change, Main Street east from Oak Street to Tyranina Park Road. Fourth, Main Street East, and this was denoted as B, Main Street East from the south side curb of East Madison Street to a point 60 feet south. C is Main Street East from a point 80 feet south of the south side curb of East Madison Street to a point 122 feet south. D, Main Street East from the north side curb of East Lake Street to a point 53 feet north. E, Main Street East from the south side curb of East Lake Street to a point 161 feet south. F, Main Street East from the north side curb of Water Street to a point 48 feet north. G, Main Street East from the south side curb of Water Street to a point 388 feet south. H, now we go to the west side of Main Street, from a point 74 feet north of the north side curb of Veterans Lane to a point 234 feet north of the north side curb of Veterans Lane. I, Main Street West, from a point 34 feet north of the north side curb of Veterans Lane, south to the city limits. J, Main Street West, from Madison Street north to a point 210 feet north of Madison Street. And that wasn't changed, so it's not completely consistent with the language that we used in the changes that we made, but I felt that was clear enough. And it was important to document that one and show it on the map. The next one's not changed either. Main Street West from Tyranina Park Road south to a point 500 feet south of Tyranina Park Road. K, Main Street West, Main Street West from a point 67 feet north of the north side curb of West Lake Street, south to the north side curb of West Lake Street. L, Main Street West from the south line of the crosswalk crossing Main Street at the intersection of West Lake Street to a point 20 feet south of the south line of the crosswalk. Main Street East from a point that is 84 feet south of the intersection with Pine Street, north to the city limits. M, Main Street West from Madison Street to a point 43 feet south. Now, N and O address the annex on Main Street. So Main Street Annex East, so the east side of the Main Street Annex, specifically that concrete portion, the east side of that concrete portion, from a point 143 feet from the northern line of the crosswalk at the intersection of Main Street Annex and Water Street to the intersection of Main Street Annex and South Main Street. And then the last one is the Main Street Annex West from a point 99 feet from the northern line of the crosswalk at the intersection of Main Street Annex and Water Street to the intersection of the Main Street Annex and South Main Street. So the lettering system is not included in the ordinance. I merely read it that way for everybody to be able to kind of follow along on the map and know where the no parking zones are going to be. The map is included in the memo. The version with the lettering system is included with the memo. The clean version of the ordinance is what you received as the ordinance to be passed. Based on our meeting with the DOT and contractors for the project on Highway 89 this morning, we did discuss potentially adding a no parking zone on Catlin at the request of the school district. So we could amend the ordinance to include that in a future draft, a future reading. The other thing is I need a sponsor for the ordinance at this point. Everybody can raise their hands, that's fine with me too.
Mike had his hand up first.
Very good.
I just had one question on H.
Yes, sir.
Just trying to understand that. Was that there always? Did we always have that, or is that extended?
H was there always, I believe. Let me look specifically. Oh, no. Okay, so H is Main Street West from a point 74 feet north of the north side curb of Veterans Lane to a point 234 feet north of the north side curb of Veterans Lane. So They're from Veterans Lane, traveling 74 feet north, and then an additional 200, that's the starting point, and then 234 feet. It used to be parking. That's an area of the project that we received some negative response on. The parking was taken away specifically for the bike lane that was installed, and there was no way at that point to take land from the owners that are fronting Main Street there. The right-of-way is right up against their buildings, basically. So if the bike lane was included in the project, which it was, then this change was necessary, and it was planned from the outset of the
Okay,
project.
yeah, I couldn't remember. I thought that's where we saw the picture of the person parking in the bike lane.
And that's basically constant, and that's the reason that this is in front of you right now is because the temporary no parking signs that have been up and down the west side of South Main Street have basically been completely disregarded.
Okay, all right. That's the only question I had.
Very good.
That point there, Mike, was also a design problem because the street didn't match up south from Water Street to north of Water Street.
Yeah.
So there's a little zigzag in the
Yep.
road there, and that was a design problem that further made a problem with being able to keep parking at that point.
Well, yeah, it also caused a blind spot, especially if somebody was trying to get in or out of Veterans Lane there.
Yep.
So,
So I'll continue with the ordinance. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent with or contravening the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 3, the ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage of publication as provided by law. So that is your first reading of the ordinance. Are there any other questions?
So do we need to, will you just bring in the one with the Catlin Drive changes?
Well, actually, I'd probably prefer some action by you directing me to do so. And this is titled Main Street. We can bring a subsequent ordinance with regard to Catlin Drive and just start the process with that, or I believe that we can add it to this based on your discretion. From a procedure and process standpoint, if it's probably easier to include that, no parking zone, it's in the spirit of this ordinance, in this ordinance so that we don't have to go through the process.
No,
with
I
the
think
entire-
so,
mean,
too.
it's basically on point. It's just a
So-
little bit off of Main Street as opposed to directly on 89.
Can I get an amendment to include Catlin Drives to this? Somebody?
I'll make that amendment.
I'd like a motion.
okay, I'll second it then.
Very good.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to include the no parking zones near Catlin Drive.
Yeah, and specifically what was requested for your information is the north side of the northern exit of Catlin Drive. So it's one way coming around from the south to the north, and the request is no parking on the north side of that exit area, the northern exit. Make sense?
Yep.
Very good.
And then you'll give us a new map of that section
What
for
I'll do
for our
is-
next meeting.
What I'll do is I'll rework the title to include Catlin Drive specifically, and then add a specific Catlin Drive provision, and also update your map that shows that as a no parking zone.
So, any other discussion on that amendment? Otherwise, we can vote on that amendment. Call the roll.
Wait, just
Oh, oh.
one question.
Sorry.
As Catlin Drive goes around to the north, you're saying, so the houses on the north side of Catlin, on the north exit, right,
Yes.
would not be able to park there anymore?
Directly in front of those properties, that is correct.
I don't think they were parked there before, were
Yes,
they?
Yeah, they do. They park there. They could park on the south side though, Doug,
Can they?
and just walk across the street.
All right,
Because
okay.
if you look at it now, there's a narrowing of the roadway so that there are only 2 lanes to exit.
Yeah, they
Used to be
changed
that-
that.
Correct.
Yeah, you remember they gave us that design and told us that that's what we had in order to be able to make that intersection work in the future. What's happened is that school buses have a problem getting into that right lane with those parking there so close to that outlet. So if we put no parking there, that clears that for the school buses and the other cars, and then the homeowner can park on the other side of the street if they need to.
Could they park in the school lot too? If necessary. Okay.
I-
All right,
yeah.
no
Well,
objection.
is somebody going to let those people know that this is happening, so it isn't, a lot of it is whether you were told it was coming? Is that a school district thing, or is that a city responsibility, or a police department I mean,
It'll be a city. We're the
Okay.
ones enforcing, we're the ones passing the ordinance.
It's our infrastructure, our road.
is that like my job to go out and tell them?
No, we can send them a letter.
Okay, could we do that just as a courtesy, saying that due to the fact that buses will be having problems turning this corner, there won't be parking on your side, but you will have parking on, and then they can talk to the school district about whether they can park in the lot right next to it there.
And when they throw their parties and stuff like that.
Well, that's true, so, if you would. Okay. Now, do we need to change the motion we have on the floor, is it adequate?
And if we're all understanding, do you understand how I defined it?
Yeah.
Are you happy with the motion that was presented?
Yeah. Call the roll.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
I,
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, so that's an amendment to this ordinance. It'll come back with us on the next meeting.
On the second reading, and I'll
Second
also
reading.
include Mike as the sponsor.
Yes. Okay, sounds good. That's all we need to do on this tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, now that goes to item 10, recommendations for future agendas. I have on my thing, let's get the date for the budget workshop, at least the first one. You were talking about, you mentioned the end of this month, didn't you, Dan, Steve?
No, actually, I mentioned before the next city council meeting,
Which is the end of this month.
October 1st.
October
Well,
1st.
October 1st is, I think, aren't we both saying the same thing? Yes,
Yes,
in
you are.
September. You want to meet in September?
No, October 1st would have been the first one.
No.
And then
You mean
October,
that night? Okay, re-say it for me again. What date did you want to do it?
October 1st at 6 o'clock.
Oh, before the meeting, okay, all right.
Then we could do, there's a fifth Tuesday, so we could do October 29th,
Okay,
and then November 5th, before the meeting at 6 o'clock.
October 29th, you're talking 7 o'clock?
Yes, that would be like a regular meeting unless you wanted to have it earlier.
I might be out the 29th. I think I'll be traveling for work on that day.
well, why don't we see how far we get on the first?
That's fine.
Because maybe since everything is so well prepared ahead of time, it might go faster than it usually goes because it's all there. I mean, kind of looks like, wow.
Or on October 1st, we could assess it at that time and then maybe do a 6 o'clock on the 15th.
That's another
Yeah, that would be
possibility.
an option, too.
Would that be better? Because then Steve wouldn't miss anything.
Yeah, I know that 29th through the 1st, I'm traveling for work.
What about the 6 o'clock on the 15th? Would you be okay with that, Steve? Let's move
We
it
may
to then.
we may need all three of them.
Well, let's do budget 6 o'clock on the 15th too. And so then, and depending on how that goes, we can determine what we need to do or not do on the 29th. So, okay. So I have 6 o'clock on the 1st, on the 15th of October, tentative 7 o'clock on the 29th, but maybe not, and then 6 o'clock on November 5th. what everybody else heard? That's- Okay, so let's plan on those, and then we'll see. And if, maybe we won't need the one on the 7th, or maybe we'll have to do it by FaceTime on his phone. And over here is Steve by phone, so, which could be done too, so, but hopefully not. Do we need a motion for that? No, okay, got it. Okay. Anything else for future agendas? Just a mention for Dan. I believe Steve's review letters have to go out beginning of October for the council members to fill out, I think, because by the time they get them back, and then we have to have that ready for that first meeting in December, all done, so. Okay, anything else? Okay, otherwise, we are going to ask you to read number 11 for us.
Convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whether competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Okay, I need a motion to move into closed session.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. We will not be coming back into this room. We will reconvene and close from that room. And we need to vote.
Yep.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, thank you, everybody.